Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know Show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest, and by the end, we will have learned something new, and hopefully you will too.
Exactly.
I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz. And in this week's episode, I think we've covered in a previous podcast, Collectomania, haven't we? Collectibles. So
this is kind of working off the back of that premise, to talk more about collecting.
It's because you especially have been asked recently by different people, why do you collect things?
Why do I like these things? Why do I collect?
So I thought, well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I think we should look into that and see, why do people collect things?
Exactly.
And so that's what it's all about.
If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes. So before we get into collecting, it's time for
Weird and Wonderful!
Now, I thought I would stay on topic with
the
collecting. That is the premise of the podcast.
It is.
So I thought I would go for a story revolving around the Guinness World Record for largest collection
of
Daleks.
Right, okay. Close to your heart then.
Well, that's actually quite interesting because when I first found out about this, it was something that I personally aspired to achieve, if not exceed, to get, even if it isn't like an official record or anything by Guinness World Records, to have
as many Daleks
as possible.
Because you love Daleks.
To be fair, we've got 2 full-size Daleks, so we've already got 100% more full-size Daleks than this person because they've only got 1.
Oh, there you go.
But
what is the record?
The record is held as of 2015 by Rob Hull.
Okay, 2015 is a while ago now.
He did it prior to that, but he massively exceeded his collection now over 20 years of collecting. His record is, as it stands, 1,801 Daleks.
Okay, so under 2,000.
Under 2,000 Daleks.
Including 1 full-size Dalek.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, considering I can look up at a shelf right up there.
I'm looking. We're in the tower studio again, and thankfully that annoying pigeon that was on the tower before we started recording,
we scared it off.
He seems to have gone. But just looking around me, in front of me, behind the cameras, behind the recording equipment. I mean, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
10.
I think there's about 50 on
11,
the
12,
second
13.
shelf up. Just off screen.
Yeah, so you certainly got some up here.
And this stipulation isn't like full-size Daleks or anything. This is something, a Daleks from the smallest size right up until the biggest size. It can be any size Dalek.
I do believe that there are some restrictions on that. They have to have the correct number of bumps and things like that.
That is true, or hemispheres.
Hemispheres, okay.
Honestly, Doctor Who fans here.
Okay. Oh, I missed one. There's one other one over there.
There's so many in that little glass cabinet.
Oh gosh, yeah. There's they start come out the woodwork. Anyway,
there's even a bottle opener there.
Oh yes, a Dalek bottle.
Inbox, of course.
Inbox.
So the stipulation that I actually have a problem with here is that every single individual in this Dalek collection, in order for it to actually count as a record, has to be unique.
Yeah, well, that's stupid.
And in that sense, I imagine an awful lot of personal customization comes into that.
That means a lot of Daleks are going to get painted.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got one, excuse me, if you got one Dalek, or let me say you got, I don't know, how many hemispheres are on an average Dalek?
I feel like I should know.
It's sort of like you should do, Doctor Who fan as you are.
I think it's like
so. I know there's 4 per strip.
30,
there's 4 per strip. So it depends on how many strips you get. Panels. But I mean, okay. So let's just say that there's 40 hemispheres on a Dalek.
Okay.
Then if you had 40 identical Daleks, you just need to paint 1 hemisphere on each of them a different colour.
Essentially, by that logic, yes, that would count.
But that's stupid. I mean, it should be by the quantity of Daleks, because let's face it, the Daleks are a race, and a lot of them would have been all the same colour.
Well, they'll be uniform.
Except they're like a uniform.
That's like being unique is completely anti-Dalek.
Because they need to be all very much the same.
Yeah.
With only the differentiations being
Ranks.
Certain colours for ranks and certain lights and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so
that's my issue with that particular record. I mean, well done to the guy for actually achieving it.
Well done. Not,
but
good on him.
I obviously have strived to
but
get that
surely,
far.
Surely.
However, I don't at the moment personally see myself applying to have it officially recognised by Guinness World Records.
I would suggest that you just do it as a personal record.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
As
it'd be a lot cheaper as well.
As it becomes a lifetime pursuit, you just increase your Dalek collection exponentially.
Exactly.
But surely that in itself would lead to a record of its own, being that this person owns the most amount of Daleks in one collection.
It just seems
I mean,
very odd.
Remember that guy we did about the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, the matchsticks.
He made it out of matchsticks.
Yeah.
And then they said, no, you can't have that as a record.
Because of the matchsticks.
Because the matchsticks were bought from hobby shop.
Yeah.
And they weren't actually manufactured as matches.
Yeah.
And then they went back on and did award it to him. So, there's hope.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't look like you're doing it specifically for getting a certificate from the Guinness Book of Records.
Exactly. It's because I genuinely like Daleks.
Okay, so you like Daleks.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like things, but that doesn't answer the question of why do you collect things. We need to obviously look into that
digest
now.
that question.
So that was Weird and Wonderful. This fact that this person has got a Guinness World Record due to the amount of Daleks he's got.
Yes.
So let's look at the subject that we're actually researching, which is that question of why.
Yeah, collecting. Why you have people that have empty houses that don't really collect anything.
Yeah. Well,
yet I enjoy quite a lot of things, and I collect stuff.
Yes, but there are different levels of collecting, different types of collecting. And I've come armed. For those listening, I've done my research again. Okay, so I've done my research. So we need to go back thousands of years.
Ooh,
okay,
this has taken a turn I did not expect.
Thousands of years. Okay, because collecting straight off the bat is not something which is. There are different types of collecting, which I'll get to as we go through this podcast. But collecting, the essence of human beings collecting, is literally thousands upon thousands of years old.
Okay.
So,
go on.
You think through the evolution of man, or if you're a creationist, the creation of man, or whatever, it doesn't really matter what you believe in.
It doesn't.
But
really
the point is
affect the podcast
that humans would have originally have been hunter-gatherers.
Ooh, I like this angle.
So you're hunting and you're gathering and you are looking for shelter, and hopefully you've got to a stage of your development that you can harness the power of fire, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you might be a nomadic tribe, which is moving around, following the herds, going to the sea where you've got plentiful, seafood and things.
In that essence, that would be out of necessity.
Yeah. So this is where collecting becomes the essence of a human, the psychology of humans.
Mm-hmm. So as survival.
Because what happens is, because humankind slowly develops to the point where actually it's really good, because if we can collect loads of fruit, if we can collect say animals and keep them rather than hunting them, if we can start tilling the soil and farming and producing stuff that we can store, suddenly we can, by having collections of things, means that we don't have to continually hunt everything. Yeah,
right.
So you suddenly have the facility where, by collecting things, you have a more stable community.
Yeah, because you already have the things.
Exactly. And because you have these things, and other communities, because of where they have established themselves, might have things you don't have. For example, if it was a coastal tribe and it's got an abundance of fish, etc. And
a place of abundance.
And you're inland, but you've got perhaps lots of fruit and barley or whatever. The thing is, you can then the whole idea of collecting and storing things means that you then build up a society where you can start to trade. Yeah, and you can start having exchange. And so what has happened over the millennia is that the whole premise of collecting things is basically a human instinct to do that, because people will collect things out of necessity, or collect things for financial gain, for example. That's what we need to explore.
Yeah, I suppose in the modern sense, it kind of boils down to, especially when we're talking about Daleks. I've got a pretty good case study here. It's going to be about some of my physical media collection. It's kind of out of a want and need kind of thing.
Okay, so I discussed this with one of my relations who, and the reason I asked her some questions was because whenever I mention the term prepping, she's always saying to me, "Yeah, it's all right, Uncle Buzz. Everything's going to be fine.
The world's not going to end.
The world's not going to end. That's not why I prep. I'm a practical prepper." But the point is, prepping is exactly that. It's collecting things to make sure that the purpose of that is to make sure you have a sense of security, a sense of stability.
I suppose in that sense, prepping is a term used for that form of collecting.
But when I asked, one of my first questions I asked is, does she collect anything? And she doesn't.
Right.
So then I thought, okay, well, maybe this is one of these things. Maybe there are basically people in the world who do not see the necessity of collecting because it's not kind of in their psyche to do that.
It's actually a very interesting notion, that.
And this was an interesting, because she did say to me, when she was a child, she collected rubbers, and she says her husband collected football. What do you call them?
Shirts?
No,
balls?
Maybe. No, you get programs. That's it.
Okay.
Football programs. But this was the interesting bit. But when we became adults, we stopped.
Right.
Okay, so that was kind of a definition that once you become an adult, you stop. Now, this is interesting because when I was a kid, and I say a kid because I actually remember this quite strongly, I had loads of collections, as I've spoken to you before.
Many times.
Collections of action men, the classic action men from the 70s, 60s and 70s. You got
the cyborgs, androids, Muton,
all that stuff. I had loads of stuff when I was a kid that I absolutely loved as a kid. But then I got to the age of 15, and it was definitely around 15, I suddenly had this complete mind shift and said, I don't need this stuff anymore. I had all my collection of 2000 AD comics, which now are worth a mint, all the original Star Wars magazines and everything. But at the time, I just suddenly thought, no, I've become an adult.
I need to start adulting.
I'm not a child anymore. I need to stop being a child and be an adult. And I got rid of everything.
Yeah.
You see, I got rid of it. Yeah. Only to then, years later, when I had a son.
Hello, I'm the son.
Now, I wouldn't say necessarily, because obviously my prepping has always been part of my life. So we all collect things kind of on a different level. But it was when you came along that kind of inspired me to say, son, whatever you get, when you get to that point in your life and you say, I don't need this anymore, it's time to be an adult. Throw away this child side of me. I said to you, don't make the mistake I did. Put it in a box. I'll stash it away in the attic, because I felt that sometime in the future you might look back and say, hey, I had all that stuff and I got rid of it. So it's kind of like, I feel that what I was saying about the stuff that I got rid of, I got rid of it only to regret it on two levels. One was from nostalgia, and I think a lot of people collect stuff because of nostalgia.
Oh yes, it plays a big part in my collecting.
So it takes you to a happy place in your life. Perhaps if you...
I'm in my pleasure room, as we've said before in the past.
I don't necessarily... I think maybe some people might use it as a crutch, because if they aren't having a happy time of things,
it's something
that can make them feel a purpose and make them feel good that they've got this collection, that they've got a purpose. But at the same time, on the opposite, I don't feel, I'm a happy guy. I'm really happy with my life, and I always am. I don't. Nothing.
Well, I mean, you've got me.
I know.
So.
I've got nothing to complain about at all. I appreciate every single thing that I've got every day, and as I've always said, find happiness in what you've got, not in what you want.
I'm pretty sure that was a
So-
wisdom of the week on one of these podcasts.
So for me, when I'm my collections, if you want to put it, they give me nostalgia.
Yeah.
They do give me
I would
pleasure from that.
100% agree with that.
However, you also had the other side of it.
I'm going to get a question in.
You will get credit. The other side of it, obviously, from that perspective of me looking back,
Yes.
and discarding all that stuff. One side is, as I say, nostalgia, but the other side is the financial side, because I can look back and see how much that's worth.
Exactly.
So
it's like it's a nest egg, isn't it?
it's an essay. So all the stuff that you've been collecting,
Yeah. It's just been appreciating
it's
in
been
value.
appreciating in value, and I
know a lot of people don't
appreciate that.
get that.
Yeah, well, I think there was I think it was a year, 2 years ago. I think it hit the main news media, TV, radio, and everything. Somebody somewhere had been an avid Pokemon collector,
Okay.
and they had a massive Pokemon collection of all sorts of things, estimated at around, I think it was about £25,000. Which they got to a point in their life where they decided, for whatever their reasons were, that they wanted to convert that money into maybe a deposit on a house or something.
Okay.
And so they auctioned it. And they got their £25,000 plus for that collection, which they would not have had if
If they hadn't had it,
collected
or if they got rid of it.
Exactly.
Now,
So,
another thing here.
Carry on.
What I'm
I'll
going to
let
go
you
back.
get your word in.
I'm going to go back to my question.
Yep.
After,
Yep.
obviously, you just brought Pokemon. Recently, I think in the last couple of months or so, they sold at auction one of the prototype rocket firing Kenner Boba Fett's.
Okay.
For like
a very, very early one.
Yeah, I mean it was never released. There was only the prototype.
Ah, I see.
And it was hand painted as well to make it look more Boba Fetty. Boba Fetty, is that?
Look, I'm sitting here with my arms crossed. I should be going open, closed, open, closed.
I mean, I've got a Boba Fett up there.
You got Slave One.
Slave One. Well, you can't call it Slave One anymore. You have to call it Boba Fett's Starship.
Oh, you're not allowed to call it Slave One.
No.
Oh, what a load of...
That's not the point. I can't remember the
kidneys.
official figures, but it was the most expensive Star Wars figure ever sold.
Really? I thought it was that little Jawa. There was a Jawa or something, collectible Jawa.
Oh, I mean, that's probably up there as well. That's just what I heard.
Okay, carry on.
On media and everything.
I'm not an expert on Star Wars figures.
But of course,
I did have all of the originals when I
obviously-
was a kid, which I got rid of. Damn it!
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to speak with you again. And in that sense, if we're talking about the person who actually bought that, they must have had a desire to get that.
Yeah, so they'd got the money to buy it, a desire which was probably out of nostalgia. I think it's going to be, again, that's part of the psychology of collecting.
To have it, yeah.
It's part of the psychology of collecting because, for example, you might collect fine art. I mean, we talk about the collectibles.
Teapots, it could be anything.
You might say you're collecting fine art, so you've got both of the things. Well, maybe not nostalgia so much as, but
if it's something you collect, you personally see the value in it. It reflects you.
But you might have a private collection of fine art, and you've got artwork that is from all sorts of different very famous periods of
Van
artists.
Gogh and stuff like
that. Constable and so on and so forth. But of course, in that situation, you might have a passion for the art. You might look at your collection and say, "I get great pleasure in both owning. I own this, and I get pleasure at looking at this." But the problem there is because they're all very individual things. So like it's not like Doctor Who where you got 7 Mona Lisas. Okay, so only you can only own in that situation, like you're saying about that Boba Fett. You can only own one picture.
Yeah.
Nobody else can have it. So there's going to be kind of a little bit of...
Is it like are you trying to get across like a competitiveness?
So
a one-upmanship
when it comes to collecting, you also got that, as well as looking at for yourself, you have got that competitiveness, say it again, competitiveness of collecting, that one-upmanship, but also it can... also bring people together with camaraderie because people can
share a fandom.
Some people say, well, I've actually got an excess of things here, and somebody else says, well, I've really been looking for for one of those,
Exactly.
but I happen to have something you haven't got.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
so you
might trade and things
So,
like that.
so you get both
There is a social side. To
social
collecting.
side and trading, but you also get that one-upmanship where if you're at an auction and you're bidding on this painting, only one person's going to get it.
Yeah.
Because there's only one of them.
Now,
once it's in a private collection, that's it.
in that
Very rare they come up again.
in that sense, I personally would like to feel that that's not why I collect things. Is to get the one-upmanship.
Well,
it's because I enjoy the thing.
And that's what I'm trying to say. There are so many levels, psychological levels to collecting. It
takes a lot to kind of break down.
It is based on our human nature as humans that collecting to have more of things is better. And so when you're talking about collecting things that give you pleasure, that might be something. Say, for example, you collected bottle tops. I knew a person once who might sound very bizarre, but he loved to collect used fireworks.
I was not expecting that.
Okay, so he had a cupboard in his bedroom full of used fireworks.
Did you see the cupboard?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact,
how full was it?
Again, how big does a collection need to be? It was a collection of used fireworks.
Was it?
But it wasn't just 5.
Was it like overflowing?
No.
Describe the cupboard.
I would say that it's okay. Let's put it this way: this guy really enjoyed bonfire night. In the UK, what we call Guy Fawkes, and so it was kind of a once a year thing. So so his collection would be a very slow build. So he had, we would go get like bucket loads or a wheelbarrow full of old spent fireworks. Yeah. But if he got one a year, that would be good.
Okay.
And do you remember that time we were over at the Vale of the White Horse?
Uffington White Horse Show.
The Uffington White Horse Show, and they put on that fantastic firework display, and they had those gigantic air mortars, and the parts of them were
good memories,
bouncing off the tent, and they were like cannonball size.
Yeah.
Well, and we kept one in the van.
Yeah.
And I remembered it was in the van, and I gave that to. He was ecstatic.
Really?
Because he had this spent mortar bomb, from one of the mortars.
Yeah.
And that gave him pleasure.
Exactly.
But there is no monetary value in that collection. It's just rubbish. It intrinsically, but for him, it meant everything.
The world, yeah.
Okay, so that's another aspect. You've got to look at it. That
it gave joy to that.
If you go back to the person who's collecting fine art, they're knowing that maybe every single one of their paintings is worth anything from £500 to £5 million. Plus. Somebody else might be collecting things because they're saying, I'm collecting this because I mean, people collect gold and silver. Yeah. People collect. People collect stamps. People collect. They do collect money from around the world.
Board games.
Yeah, board games. So
retro games.
So again, it's either going to be something that gives you pleasure, and like the fireworks, but has no monetary value, or it's going to be something that you're combining both pleasure and the fact that what you're purchasing or collecting is increasing in value as you go along.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that has become, because when I was a kid back in the 70s, especially when it came to, we were coming out of, the Second World War, the post-war, people didn't have a lot, and then 1950s rationing stopped, and then through the 60s people started to get a little bit more affluent, and you hit the 70s, and then suddenly kids were having this kind of explosion in toys. Yeah. But at that time, nobody would have thought they'd ever be worth anything. So when you played with them, broke them, and threw them away, it's only 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years down the line that suddenly that nostalgia means that people want to collect them, and that means that they suddenly become material. Because I suppose have material value.
In that sense, even looking at the cyborgs and androids and things, they don't make those anymore.
No.
And therefore there is a limited amount of that thing on this planet.
Exactly.
And to own it
it becomes rarer and rarer.
Is hard. Yes. It's hard to purchase and to own because there's only a finite amount to have.
Okay, so I think that's a good point. I don't collect a lot myself. Okay, I kind of combine my collecting with you.
You leave me to do the collecting. I'm joking.
But I have got one little collection which I've brought in as an example. Can I just dive into that?
Before we get into that,
okay,
I do have my question from a few minutes ago.
Okay.
So, you said you got to the age of 15.
Yep.
And you kind of...
It's time to adult.
It's time to adult now. Was that a personal choice, or had you been told to?
Now, that's a good question. I think a lot of people... I think sometimes...
I can go from what my experience was with it.
Well, I would say, since you asked me the question first...
I'm interested to see what you
I think for me, it was probably a personal decision based on a couple of things. One, I remember I donated a lot of my stuff to my secondary school because they were trying to raise money for some charity, and we'd had this speech from the headmaster, which kind of, I think it hit home to me at that age, and it was saying, if you've got toys and things that you are now too old for, that you don't need anymore, other people are going to benefit from this. And I do remember going home and thinking, maybe I am too old for this stuff now, but I've got all this stuff.
In that sense, do you also think you could have thought that maybe somebody else might appreciate the things I've got more than me?
I don't think that was the case. I think it was I wanted to help to raise money, and at the same time,
so
that little earworm of, you're probably you've got this stuff, but now you're all young men and young ladies, you kind of don't
need to start
adulting these toys. So that kind of got in there, and I don't think it was anything to do with peer pressure from any of my friends to say, oh, you still got all these things. None of that happened, but it also might have been at the particular point that of being a 15-year-old and also getting into having girlfriends and things, that you feel that you are transcending into being a bit more adult. You're going from being a kid where you play with all your friends, whether they're girls or boys, you play with all your friends, and you're all kids together, and then suddenly relationships start, and you go on to this kind of as a male, testosterone fueled kind of new area of your life, And,
I know what you mean.
And you kind of can turn around and say, well, I don't need this stuff anymore. That's the child me.
So I asked that question kind of also as a reflection of my experience on that fact. And at points in times, I found that my passion of collecting things has at times been a point for contention.
It's interesting because you do use the word passion there.
It's because it's something I care about. I've collected for ever.
Yes, since
essentially
you grew up, and I will say I probably influenced you.
And the thing I have actually brought in today, I've kind of got a good memory of when I started collecting that thing. But anyway, it's always at points that I've found last 5 years or so with various different people. I'm not going to go into names or details on who brought these things up.
Relationships,
probably. It has at times been a source of contention, as in, why do you collect this stuff? In a kind of negative way, you should get rid of this so we can
I have observed,
move on in our life.
I've observed this on TV programs and things where a couple get together.
Yep.
And I know this sounds bad, but it tends to come across that it's the lady that tends to tell the man, "Oh, you don't need this stuff now. Get rid of it."
And it's just it seems to be
maybe men.
It's obviously a mentality, because this has happened to me more than once on this front.
I'm sure.
And in that sense, it's not like I'm suddenly flipping the coin and saying, if I get rid of all this stuff, you should get rid of all your stuff. It seems to be very one-sided mentality.
Yeah, so you want a relationship with me, that's great, but you need to get rid of all the stuff that you've acquired. Because I don't want that in our life.
Yeah, it just seems...
Not to say there aren't lady collectors out there. I'm sure there's loads of women...
Undoubtedly. It's just from our personal experience.
Yeah.
And in that sense, asking someone who is so passionate about something, it's almost
to get rid of
asking them to get rid of themselves.
Part of themselves. That's a good point, actually, because I mean,
I'm loving the analysis.
I'm saying about lady collectors because there was that one where I've often referred to this program where the chap who plays Draco Malfoy,
Tom Felton.
And he was.
I was in Harry Potter. I know.
He was talking about superfans, and he went to visit one of his superfans, which is a lady in her 40s. And her whole house was Tom Felton. Yeah. Well, shall I say Malfoy? Draco Malfoy. So a lady collector collecting like everything, but yeah, it's interesting how relationships can have that effect.
That friction.
But that would.
Whereas I would personally want to share a collection to kind of show why.
I would say that is an issue with the other person in the sense that they don't actually appreciate that that's part of you. Yeah. If they want a relationship with you and you want a relationship with them, say for example they are very much into horse riding, for example. They love equestrianism or they love going skiing or canoeing, or they have
all of these things sound really cool, by the way.
So they have a hobby in their life. And they're passionate, and every weekend they want to go canoeing. Reminds me of some people I know.
You're just saying things we like now.
Yes, things we like. But if you turn around and say, "Well, no, you're going to have to get rid of that horse," if we're going to go and buy it, if we're going to live together, and we're going to get someplace together, I'm afraid that's all going to go out the window. Yeah, that's asking a hell of a lot of somebody.
Exactly.
Regardless of of which partner it is. Because in life you don't know when you're going to meet somebody. You don't know if you're going to meet somebody and that person is going to be the one, or you're going to go through 3 or 4 people before you meet the one, if you ever do meet the one. Which means that if you go and drop all your stuff immediately, then
what have you got to show for it?
Then if that relationship crashes
obviously
and burns,
of course, when you're in a relationship, you want to think of the absolute world of it, and you want to believe that it's all going to work out wonderful and everything. But the honest truth is, you don't know what bumps are going to occur.
Yeah, there's always bumps. Life is not easy, is it?
No. But if you're giving up something that you are so passionate about, like the flip of a switch, that could have detrimental effects
I think
on your personal life.
I think it's better to, if you're in a situation like that, you say, well, I'm not getting rid of the stuff. I'll box it up. I'll put it to one side. But it's not going to go. But I've got to say this, Zach. Hopefully one day you'll meet somebody who's just as passionate about what you like. Or if they're not as passionate about what you like, which doesn't matter, but they perfectly accept that you like collecting stuff. So
exactly. You want to share that passion with
they might
whoever it is you're with.
Yeah, they might have their own collection of Tamagotchis or something like that.
Crikey, Tamagotchis.
I don't know. But anyway, right. So what we're trying to do is discover why people collect things. And of course, as a prepper, I collect things. But I would say that my prepping collecting, it gives me a feeling of reassurance, of stability, of being able to deal with a crisis if anything happens. And I'm just talking for those people who are not familiar with us talking about prepping. So this could be just like, there's a power cut, and I'm okay. I can start my generator, get my freezers running again, and everything else. Not a panic.
So, go listen to those podcasts, by the way. We've done so many prepping podcasts.
So that gives me a peace of mind. But although there is kind of a financial monetary value to my prepping, it's not, that's exactly not anything to do with why I've got this stuff. And for me, collecting things again isn't from a financial perspective. For my own personal collecting, I don't do a lot. But I'm going to dive to this because you stopped me earlier. One of the collections, which was easy for me to bring in. Okay, so for those people listening to this, you're going to hear a lot of rattling. Oops, and I just kicked the mic. Sorry about that. But anyway.
It is cat food. No, I'm joking.
No. So anyway, I've got all these little things in here. They rattle and do stuff. Okay.
Bit of ASMR right there.
I'm just going to wind this one up. So there we go. If I wind this particular thing up, the listeners aren't going to know what the hell I'm going on about. I'm going to start it. Okay. There you go. So it made a little. This actually jams. There we go. Okay, so what I've got here are 1970s games called Pocketeers. So for those people that are on YouTube watching it, I've got a whole box full of Pocketeers. And these are... I'm dropping them everywhere. These are all identical in size. They're probably the same size, not far off of an original Nintendo Game Boy.
Yeah.
But these came out way before.
They're rectangular, aren't
Yeah.
they? All different colours.
And they're called
different designs.
Pocketeers because they would slip in your pocket.
That makes sense.
And they are puzzles and games. So, for example, this one here, which is a kind of you have a little ball bearing. Oh, I'll explain that one that's right anyway. So you got a little one called, I think this was originally called Steeplechase, and it's kind of got ramps and obstacle course and everything. You've got to get your ball bearing around it. Okay.
Let's just show that on the YouTube viewers.
Yeah. So this one,
one's
like a puzzle. So you sit there and try and complete the course without the ball bearing falling off it.
1975. This one came out.
Well, the one you've got is a timed maze. I'm going to put these down. Just use this one as an example. So you've got this one which is called Time Out. So again, you've got a ball bearing in there, which you try and get around a maze.
Yeah.
But it's clockwork. Okay, so you pull this timer. You've got 20 seconds, and it means that the maze that you're going around drops away from the screen, the top part of the game itself, and that means the ball runs freely around the maze. Okay, and then when you start it, you go to the start position, and you've got to then turn it on. And you've got to get that ball around the maze as far as you can, ideally all the way to the end. Yeah, and you're going and you're going and you're going and going. And then when the timer runs out, the mechanism pushes it up and locks the ball in place so the ball won't move. Yeah?
That's really clever.
So that therefore, those people are viewing, you can then read your score. So you got round and I've got sort of like a 60 score. Okay. But the thing these were all manual. They're wind up or they're just
analog. Analog pocket games.
And I loved these when I was a kid.
And I imagine it would be great fun to play with a friend.
And I had pretty much all of these, and I got rid of them. Yeah, but I found that you could buy them on eBay.
Yeah.
At a very reasonable price. Apart from, and this is why I brought this up, because earlier you were saying about things becoming like these cyborgs and androids.
Finite.
They become finite. There's only so many available.
Yeah.
And I will say with my collection on these, I haven't got I've got most of them.
There's the one, isn't there?
Yeah, I've got most of them, but most of mine are also out of box. You can get these in box, but if they're in box, they are very expensive.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not that
fussed.
I'm not or passionate that I must have them in box. So none of mine are in box. Okay, I don't know.
Reaches over to his massive pile of Doctor Who things.
So we know he goes to B&M and buys everything. Anyway, so I don't get the ones in box. So my collecting isn't that. What's the best way to describe it? Yeah, some people must be like very, very much. I must have this in box. How would you describe that kind of feeling? It's no good to me if it's not in.
Obsessive.
It has to be.
Is it
in what do they call it, in mint condition?
Mint condition.
Yeah, I'm not bothered about that. And some of these have got cracks in them, the scuff and everything.
BNIP, brand new in box.
But these work. And they bring me back nostalgia. Yeah. But there are certain ones of these. There's one they made some which actually the boxes opened. They had one which was my favourite one, which was a blowpipe. So,
and you haven't got one of those yet.
It's a 3-sectional blowpipe. It had rubber darts in it, and the case itself had a target. So once you take the case apart and you assembled the blowpipe, they put the case over on a shelf somewhere, and you could use it to target shoot. They did the same.
Amazing.
They did a similar one with a crossbow that used an elastic band.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're the ones that have become really rare. And because they're rare to find, because they were in pieces, you can imagine all the bits getting lost. I've only got one, which is a golf set, which I've got. But the thing is, that's where that kind of, for me, if I saw one come up and they're wanting £200 for it, I'd say, yeah, I like the nostalgia.
Yeah.
But I'm not forking out £200 for
okay,
it.
in this sense, how many would you say you've got in that box then?
Oh, at least 30, I would have thought.
30, that's your entire collection of these things.
Of the Pocketeers, yeah. And I like them because once in a while...
Well, they're fun, aren't they?
You know, I can see me in my retirement deciding to have a Pocketeer day and having a little play. But I love them because the thing is, these are pre-electronic video games. You know, these were games that, as a 70s kid, you'd have them in your pocket. You'd go to school and you'd all be showing each other which games you got. You're swapping them around.
How much? Well, okay. Which one do you reckon was the most expensive?
What that I've got?
Yeah.
It's probably the golf game.
How much did you spend on
and
it?
that
if you don't mind me asking.
I don't know. I think I actually got it at quite a bargain, really. I think I got it because, again, it's not in box, and it's all complete. I think I spent 40 quid maybe on it.
40 quid. Okay.
But that, even for me, was a moment of
pushing the boat out.
Shall I or shan't I?
Well, it's that kind of draw between, like, how much are you willing to pay, to depart with, to get something.
So that's my little collection.
Yeah.
That I write, and I suppose I have a few other bits and pieces. I collect camping gear. I collect.
Well, that's the thing. This is just one case study
that would be
out of several things we could possibly bring in.
Right, where most of my collecting is practical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you always pull my leg about buying Ryobi tools.
Ryobi.
But they're practical things.
Yeah, of course.
And I haven't bought them for financial purposes. They actually pretty good. But so. There you get kind of hooked in on the that's good marketing from Ryobi.
The functionality as well. Yeah.
Which again is part of this why I collect things, because collecting things allows for people to use capitalism and marketing to make money. You produce something that then becomes collectible, a range of products. So Ryobi is a range of products, but then you offer certain things to science fiction fans, to pop memorabilia fans, to film fans, then you can start, as a company, you can start producing things much like the Doctor Who box sets.
I would say
that appeal, and people say, "Oh, I've got to collect this." So actually,
in popular media, a big one I think still is quite prolific is, of course, the pop vinyls.
Yeah, pop vinyls.
And I haven't actually got any of those.
No. I just want one, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one?
Well, I'm hoping when the live action Snow White movie comes out, which I believe has now actually had some pre-screenings, and had some favourable critique back from the people who see the pre-screenings. I'm hoping they'll bring out pop vinyls of the Seven Dwarfs, or the Seven Miners, as they're known.
7 fantasy creatures.
That's the seven. And because I was scanned and for Happy the Dwarf.
Oh, you do have a happy personality.
It's not the only dwarf I've played, but I've got my call sheet for Happy the Dwarf, and so I'd like to have the Happy the Dwarf pop vinyl.
That would be
because it's me.
Yeah, I could see why you'd want that. But
I've always wanted my own action figure.
Like,
I'm gonna have to settle on a pop vinyl.
And I must say, on the front of action figures, in a very broad sense, I must have. It's got to be thousands, hasn't it?
Yeah, thousands.
Thousands of action figures.
But again,
all different.
Well, you've got. I can see from here. You've got some of the original, 1970s Star Wars ones.
Star Wars, Alien, Predator, Doctor Who, Godzilla.
Yeah,
all these different things.
So what you're saying is fandom also manifests that psychological urge to collect. Because we live in a society now that, again, I keep mentioning prepping. Hardly anybody preps, but for our ancestors from our ancestral, life that we've come from through the millennia. That collecting has become inbred. And so what's happening now is people collect things to satisfy that need, but it isn't food and resources.
Yeah, we live in a world of excess.
So they've replaced. I think a lot of people replace that because we live in a time when you can collect things for nostalgia purposes and not for just practical means.
And okay, continuing with the action figures and things. Something that I've noticed and that I can do is, like, you point to anything in this room. It could be that Predator up there, for example.
Yep.
I know you can get him down. It's a laser shot Predator.
I can get him down. Very well.
Yeah. I remember getting that, and I remember where I got it from.
Can I guess? It was just Toys R Us.
Toys R Us.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
I actually got it, if I go over here, same day as I got this die-cast Sandcrawler from Star Wars. And now these two fandoms are completely separate from each other. But somehow in my brain,
No, I just shot you with a rocket. Oops, sorry.
I remember getting these two things on the same day. And for the most part, I can remember where I got every figure in this room. Sauron over there, I got him off eBay. I got that American Werewolf in London figure from Comic Con.
So I'm going to interject there. Yeah. And your point is?
What? I don't. It's just I don't know. It's just everything has a story.
Right, now I'm going to kick in here if you don't mind.
Okay.
From my research.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is something you might not have considered.
Okay.
I kind of in the preamp to doing this podcast, I kind of mentioned there's some stuff that I didn't want to tell you about.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. Oh yeah, of course. I don't know.
Okay. But collecting, those people that might say, why do you bother collecting things? Collecting isn't just physical material goods.
Yeah.
Because, think about this.
Okay.
People collect experiences. People collect memories. People will pay money yearly to go on different exotic holidays.
Yep.
So where they'll get the world map. Where haven't we been? We have a need, a passion to go to different places to basically do what you just said. They're collecting memories, collecting experiences, collecting things. So people that might not have a physical collection may well still flex their natural bent on actually collecting without necessarily realizing that that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They actually go and collect by traveling.
Yeah.
Traveling and all sorts of things like that. Because you said every one of these things holds a memory for you. So when somebody travels and they can look at their photographs, the photograph itself might mean nothing to anybody else.
Yeah.
The photograph itself is worthless as a piece of material. Yeah, it's just a photo. But it is the memory that they've collected.
Well, you see that, you might be able to see it over there. There's the front of a Robin.
Yeah, I can see. Robin on his bat bike.
On his bat bike. Or would it be a Robin bike? I don't know. But
okay, Robin bike, I don't know.
Again,
if you know, put it in the comments.
I can go get it.
No, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
All right.
It's too much equipment.
You brought up Uffington White Horse.
Okay.
And that's where I got that from.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
exactly. Now,
that's funny. That's come up twice.
All these things. How on earth? Why does that click something in my brain that says I remember exactly where I got that from? I don't know. But to me, that says that if I can remember where that came from, that sparks that memory, that has value in my life.
So what you're saying is literally where we're up in the Tower studio. This is, as we comically call it, your pleasure room. This is where a lot of your collectibles stay.
Yeah.
And so what we're actually in a museum of memories, aren't we?
Oh, we're in a museum of Zak.
Yes. But you see, so the difference between your collection and say my little collection of Pocketeers, that's a collection of nostalgia to me. But none of those are the original ones that I owned. Yeah, none of those. So I can't look at that apart from saying, "Oh, I got that off eBay." Doesn't hold any memories for me. So there's a big difference between those two collections. You've not only got the item.
Yeah.
And the item has its monetary value. Yeah. But it also has a memory attached to it. And I would say that if somebody, for example, is going back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast, collecting fine art, they might get bid an auction and buy a constable, for example, and it might cost them 2.5 million pounds. I have no idea what constable paintings are valued at, but let's say it cost them £2.5 million to have that constable. They own that item, it's got monetary value, but there's no memory attached to it, is there?
Exactly.
Apart from bidding on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a different aspect.
And in that sense, having that memory attached to it, I personally would find it incredibly difficult
to part
with any of these things.
Okay.
Unless the reason is valid.
Right. So I'm coming back to you saying about people saying, will you get rid of your collection? That means they're not appreciating your collection is also your scrapbook. It's your
It's
life.
my history.
It's your history up to this point.
Yeah.
And I would also go as far as to say
that's quite profound.
But when it comes to collecting, collecting is literally a lifelong pursuit, because I don't think people will ever. I mean, you could complete. I mean, I could complete the collection of Pocketeers.
Yeah.
If I could get all of them, and I was prepared to spend the money.
Yeah.
You know, I think I saw a virtual complete collection came up for £1,500, but I'm not paying £1,500 for it. But you could complete a collection.
Yeah.
But then you might be say, well, I've got that, but I want to start collecting something else. But if you're a collector of such a wide range of things as you are, it becomes a lifelong pursuit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which you're never ever going to complete, because there is no end to it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
on that sense, there's kind of two ways I could kind of go with this, but maybe it's a good opportunity to
bring in what
I
go for it. So
Okay,
this
so
is your little example of collecting.
a massive thing when it comes to my collecting is obviously physical media.
Yeah.
Physical media, DVDs, Blu-rays,
4Ks.
4Ks. I've got a lot.
You've got VHS as well.
I've also got VHS, and I did bring in some of those today. But when I first properly started collecting physical media, I go back to a Christmas.
Yep.
2010.
Memories.
I got two things,
Okay.
and that was Machete and Iron Man 2 on Blu-ray.
I remember the Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Now, these were my first Blu-rays
Yep.
of what is essentially a collection of nearly 2,000 titles now. And that has been 15 years almost?
Yeah.
15 years of collecting physical media. And I've always kept these. I never want to get rid of these, because these, again, hold that personal story to them.
Do you want my memory of this? I remember getting the Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
And it's Blu-ray, and Blu-ray, it's going to be like the most amazing thing that we've seen, because we've always watched DVDs.
Yeah.
So I remember putting it in the PlayStation 3.
Because that was the same year I got PS3.
Yeah, put it in the PlayStation 3, playing it on the TV, and I thought, this looks absolute crap. It does. Because at the time, call me naive, but at the time I had no idea that you needed to have an HDMI cable. So we were just trying to play this Blu-ray through the normal analog cables.
15 years later, we got a 55-inch 4K TV sat right up there behind the camera.
Yeah, no.
And in that sense...
But yeah, I remember that.
The only actual things I think I've sold when it comes to collectible things is physical media.
Yeah, because you double up something.
Because I double up, I double dip as a
yeah, and sometimes I know
official term for it.
I know on occasions you've bought sort of job lots.
Yeah.
Or people have literally given you like
a mountain of them.
A whole carrier bag full of DVDs and
which
things.
Is so kind.
So I can understand that you would then
because they know I have a passion for it and I collect these things.
You're very easy for Christmas presents.
I know, it's great.
Anybody wants to get Zak a Christmas present, just get him a Dalek.
Ooh, yeah. So they were my first Blu-rays. But it's interesting because obviously I'll go to the VHSs. There you go. VHS. My earliest memories of VHSs have probably got to boil down to two things.
Oh, yes.
One is the original Star Wars trilogy.
Star Wars trilogy, which that is the these ones are the ones before they re-CGI'd them.
Yes, there've been a couple of different cuts of them, but these are one of the earlier cuts because it's you can't really get the original cuts of the original trilogy that often now. There is only one official release where you can get the original of the Star Wars trilogy, which is a great shame considering the fandom.
I'm admiring the artwork.
I know
because it's got artwork on here from the 1970s,
and I obviously don't know how much this is worth now, and obviously it's been used a lot. It's got a lot of yellowing on the box, but I have such good memories of that.
Yeah, I mean,
that is something I have actually replaced on DVD, Blu-ray.
This is pre-streaming. So we would have literally.
This is from the very early days of my life, and I can never see myself getting rid of it.
Yeah, these would have been. Keep watching them on the video because there was nothing else. You could stream them.
I've got them on DVD, which have got the original cuts up there, like the original original cuts, and I've watched those and they're really good. I would recommend those over
But
the updated
again, I
ones.
think that's why.
And Blu-rays over there.
I know we mentioned about streaming before, but I think that's kind of what puts people off of collecting this kind of physical media, because they just consume movies and they've become.
No, well, you can lose interest in the movie and turn it off.
They lose interest
After 10 minutes.
After 10 minutes, I don't like this, turn it off. And so they have no interest.
Whereas I would always like to stick with a movie to see where it goes.
And then you find, actually, there's a different cut of this.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's
I've probably got loads of movies in my collection that I probably don't think are amazing, but I still had fun finding out whether or not they were.
Go on, you're teasing us with another one.
Another one is this very old The Daleks limited edition box set.
Yep.
So VHS again.
And that's in a tin box.
It's in a tin box.
It's the other side. That's the hinge side.
Oh, okay.
There's just pointing that.
So in here we have, without the box, Remembrance of the Daleks.
I don't know where the box went.
I think it got killed.
Mauled.
And The Chase with William Hartnell. So this is the Seventh Doctor one, Remembrance of the Daleks, and then William Hartnell, The Chase.
And some pamphlets.
And some pamphlets. And I'm not sure if the Dalek Survival Guide came in here as well, but I like reading that, so it's out of here. Yeah, all these little books and things.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong, but did we get this from the Llangollen place?
I don't
Dapol
think,
Museum?
I'm not sure whether that was...
Because this is like baby Zak now, I reckon.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether that was actually given to us as a gift. A Christmas gift.
And obviously, this is probably one of the few Doctor Who VHSs that are actually like official releases.
But this is what I'm getting into. You know, now you're talking about a time where companies have clicked on to the point that people collect things.
Yeah.
So if you can produce an item that is a limited edition, then people are you're gonna get the collectors buying it. So there's money to be made from companies cashing in on people that are collectors, and obviously collectors getting enjoyment.
It's
getting
very much
these things. You know?
It's a marketing point now.
Yeah,
being
marketing
a collector.
point.
Like you have a numbered spine on everything. Behind the camera, I've got the 88 films Asians collection, 1 to 36, lined up on a shelf, and they are not easy to get.
Yep. However, carry on.
I can't remember where I was going with this, but thing is, I've got these VHS. I've got a massive collection of Doctor Who VHSs now that I've got, and essentially it is an outmoded
I think we might
format.
I think we have a player somewhere.
Yeah, it's an outmoded format. I think the player's actually buried behind that a lot, behind the TV. But it's outmoded, but we don't have a player plugged in or anything. But I still enjoy it. It's something I enjoy, and that's why I have it.
Exactly.
And of course, I've got the remastered Blu-rays, DVDs, all on the shelf up there.
I would say it's the same for somebody who's into pop memorabilia. That if they have gone out and they remember owning the original album of a particular group,
exactly,
and they can get it on CD, and of course now they can download it on Spotify.
Yeah,
but I have still got the original album that is made, obviously stamped out in vinyl.
It's like having a piece of something you enjoy.
It's your history.
Exactly.
However, moving on. We've got to move on this podcast.
Oh, I've got 3 more things I want to show.
Three more things.
Okay, so I hold value in all my physical media.
Yep.
Actually, I had a good... Okay, physical media, right? Now, Shark Attack 3 Megalodon, the one with John Barrowman in it.
John Barrowman, I
like,
remember that.
I have good memories of this as a kid, but overall, is it the best movie in the world? No, it isn't. Why do I still have it? Is a question I'm probably going to be asked several times. But I have memories. I have an attachment to this movie. I enjoy it. I remember watching it as a kid and going, wow, giant sharks.
Yeah.
John Barrowman.
Oh, probably the same for me when I first saw a Godzilla movie back in the 70s.
And you can just look at the condition of the disc. It is watched to death.
Has somebody been ice skating on it?
Yeah. And I've just got fond memories of it. And that is why things like that I cherish, the memories, I'm not going to get rid of.
Exactly. People listening, he's not going to get rid of it.
I'm not getting rid of Shark Attack 3 Megalodon.
Yes. Don't ask
So-
Zak to get rid of his collections.
Going to limited edition, this is a HMV premium collection
Okay.
one.
Them.
Good example of the numbered spines. This is them, a
The
film.
giant ant
Giant
movie,
ant
which I
movies.
loved when I was a kid.
Exactly, that's why I had
got
to
that-
get it on Blu-ray.
So I can't do the sound of the ants, but you can hear
You
them
sound
coming
like
in the desert.
nuclear fallout.
Here's it.
Okay,
Here's it.
but a good example of the numbered spine thing we were talking
Yeah.
about, how in doing things like that, kind of marketing it to a collector of things.
Well, good old Jack, who joins us on podcast once in a while,
Yeah.
he hates having the numbers missing out of his
exactly.
collection. It's like,
It's
I've got a number missing.
It's so true. It's so true, and I think this goes up to like at least 150 now, like the collection. So,
Yeah. Okay. Can we have your last one?
but okay, and my last one is kind of a high end example of these things.
High end, ladies
This
and
is
gentlemen.
the 4K limited edition box set of Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
Now that is a very chunky box.
It is.
This has all of the cuts of the film in 4K.
I like the fact all of the cuts. When most people think, well, it's just one.
There's 3 cuts.
Okay.
All right, you've got the
Yeah.
okay. I don't have to. Separate video.
Separate video.
Okay.
Separate podcast.
But it's also got obviously collector's booklets, art cards, etc. in here. It's even got a novel, for goodness sake. It has the novel of the movie in this box.
Nice.
And this is a prime example of something that is marketed to a collector.
Yeah. So this comes down onto.
And that's why I got it, because I like the movie.
The psychology of collecting, referring to my notes, that comes under consumerism and materialism. You know.
How much
and
did I pay for it?
capitalism.
How much did I pay for it? I got it for a good deal.
I don't know.
Go on, guess.
£50.
Crikey. You're out of touch with pricing. £40.
40.
40.
Well, I wasn't that far off.
I mean, I would expect it to go for in excess of 100, to be honest.
Ouch. Right, so collecting. We've talked about obviously the origins of collecting being a thing that is just bred into humans, okay, for self-preservation.
Yep.
And then moving on to how that collecting means that you can then have trade and exchange and security and everything else. Obviously, we get to go through to the collecting of items and the fact that they, you now have collections which are based on consumerism, materialism, neurobiology, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because the thing we haven't covered and a word we haven't covered is hoarding.
Yeah.
Now people say, "Oh, you're hoarding stuff." Now you could say
That seems
for
like an
example,
oversimplification.
Well, some people when we talk about prepping will say, "Oh, you're hoarding."
You're a hoarder.
No.
As
See, hoarding is not that. Collecting, there is like a purpose to it. Like you've very, well explained to us.
Eloquently.
Eloquently explained to us how it holds memories and everything else to you. And we've discussed how collections can literally be there because they're an investment. Maybe people don't necessarily really, they collect silver. Maybe they're not particularly attached to it, and they will not necessarily have any memories from it, but they know that it's something that might be materially worth something in the future that they can cash in.
Yeah.
But you have people that do hoard things, and now hoarding you generally is associated with people who collect things that have no actual purpose. They'll say that thing, or I'm not going to throw that away because you never know when it might come in handy. And so the shed starts to fill up with stuff, the garage starts to fill up with stuff, and you have people that take it to the extreme where their houses become absolutely stacked to the gunnels. Even, you see it on TV where the houses are full of rubbish. People are just hoarding everything, and that is a neurological disorder. So some people have this need to collect things, but it is an actual mental disorder that they have.
Okay.
That it's not something that they like where
So,
you're having a collection.
In this sense, do you suppose that there is a line when something becomes negative, when it kind of has an effect on your
most definitely
your life?
Because it becomes like
if it infringes upon your day-to-day life.
If you're talking about these people that hoard things in their houses and they could hardly get through the houses, and they might have infestations, might have mice, rats, things. It's become
a problem,
like a compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes they just cannot not live that way.
Well, I mean, in a sense, is it not equatable?
Yeah, it's like an obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah. Could it also be that if somebody is spending too much on a collection and it becomes like a debt?
Yeah. Well,
then...
but that is interesting you say that, because you are now, when I said about people collecting like holidays, collecting experiences, you can also associate the that inbuilt human response of collecting could be attached to such things as gambling as well. That you get hooked on it,
like it's an addiction, yeah,
because you could be addicted to collecting things. I've got to buy this, I've got to buy the next one, I've got to have that, you know. And that same impulse, that same obsessive compulsive disorder, if you like, could take you to become somebody who cannot control their gambling and just wants to keep betting, or they'll get a win and then go, oh, I won, I'm going to flitter it all away again because hopefully I'll win more, and then it all disappears. And you know, so collecting is more than just collecting physical items. Yeah. It's kind of
to see it as such is to be blind to its worth to a person.
So if you get the darker side of collecting, which is hoarding, then yes, that is basically a neurobiological disorder.
Yeah,
that has to be dealt with.
I dare say, in that sense, is not as cleanly as like you've got it or you haven't got it. I dare say there is a spectrum of it, as well, to be considered. Yeah,
I would say the person that I talked about earlier about the fireworks, they did have certain learning disabilities, learning disorders, and I think that was part of why it was in their psyche. They loved the fireworks, wanted to keep a memory of it. Yeah, but it wouldn't be something that you would consider in inverted commas a normal person would collect. And if unchecked, something like that then can become out of hand. Yeah, and if there's nobody around to kind of just keep it under control, then that person could have easily literally gone out with a wheelbarrow or bucket and collected all these old dead fireworks until the whole room and their next room, their house is filled with old fireworks, because it's become such an obsessive thing. And then how do you then deal with that?
Exactly.
So I don't think collecting in any way, shape or form, if you is bad. Yeah. I actually feel that, to answer the question, why do you collect, I think it is hardwired into everybody. And I think those people, and you mentioned it again at the beginning, sometimes you go into houses which are like, you go in the lounge, the fireplace in houses have gone now. So many new builds don't even have a chimney. So the fireplace is the television. You know, the fireplace used to be the focal area in a room when I was a kid. Now it's the television. So you got the television, the carpet, a settee and an armchair. White beige painted walls, a light hanging from the ceiling, a couple of pictures of maybe family members on the walls, and nothing. And I find that, like, no books, because people, I know so many people, and I'm like this, I collect books as well, but books, but there's nothing in these houses. Some people like having very, very, very minimalistic things, and I would say that they probably are still people.
Is that a mentality of cleanliness, though?
It could be, and may well be, but it could also be that they manifest their collecting in experience, that they, rather than surround themselves with things, that they say, I don't want clutter around me, I want this clear. But they're the ones that are possibly, go to the theatre, I don't know, go, because you could say collecting, if you are somebody who loves going to the theatre as much as we love going to the cinema. If you go to the theatre and you're watching the play and you've watched the play several times, or you go into the new play and you keep doing that, you're collecting memories.
In that sense,
I think everybody's a collector in one way or another.
In that sense, do you reckon it's easier to be more critical of something physical
Yeah, I think if you're a
You
person,
can point at that Witch King of Angmar over there
Yeah.
and say, why have you got that there?
makes no sense to me.
Makes no sense to me.
But you could look at that, and then you could immediately picture the scenes in the movie.
I can picture the scenes in the
You
movie.
could picture the scenes in the books.
Yeah.
You can picture times that you've
Displayed it. It's jumped around the room several times.
So yeah, I mean,
I remember the time I got that off eBay, and I got it for like £10, and it's in like mint condition, and I'm like, great.
I think to conclude this particular podcast,
It looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Concluding with the Witch King. I think so you were posed the question on several times, why do you collect?
Yeah.
And I think hopefully we've answered that, because collecting is something that's hardwired into human beings generally.
Yeah.
It can be of a practical level, where you collect things on a practical level, and I would say that is like on prepping. That's not obsessive, it's just prepping, and it's not. There's no financial comeback on that. I mean, I suppose you could if you wanted to sell your food stocks off, maybe.
Well, the value of that would be if. In obviously one of these, you don't want these situations to happen, but if should the apocalypse occur, the value of said preps suddenly skyrockets
For trading, you mean?
for trading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
In that hypothetical situation.
Hypothetical situation, which is not why I prep it. I think that collecting is a healthy thing. I think collecting is obviously cashed in on by certain commercial companies, and I think collecting is also something that people do through experiences. And if you're a holiday company, you're going to cash in on the need that people find to travel, because travelling is their collecting. Yeah. Just to name one kind of different type of collecting. It's the collection of memories.
Yeah, I suppose in that sense.
People used to go on holiday, didn't they, and get their passport stamped. Everywhere they went had their passport stamped, and then show their passport to their friends as some kind of like trophy of all the places they've been to around the world.
I suppose what I mean, obviously what I'd said about, I can point at that physical thing and say, why do you like that, and things, and be critical of that because it's there. I can point at it. Yeah. But in the same sense, you can't point at somebody's memory of a holiday and say, go sell that holiday. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
No. So they've collected their, but that is kind of to round off. This is possibly a good way of rounding off. There is, if everybody in the UK is familiar with the Antiques Roadshow, there are sometimes collections that come up on the Antiques Roadshow where you have somebody who has maybe been a pilot in the Second World War, and they have their pilot records and all the missions they've been on.
I know what you're going to get.
They might have their medals, and they might have photographs, and they might have bits of the uniform and things like this. And you have this fantastic collection that their family member has got. That is
or inherited.
Yeah, is inherited, and it's a wonderful collection of memories and stories and everything. And then it's not really worth anything. Yeah, they come around and say, "Well, this is very interesting. It's probably worth £200," and you go, "Is that all somebody's life is worth?" So, not all collections are, and some people will actually want to sell that on. And you think,
well, that is something I hadn't really considered in reference to this podcast, but that is an issue I have found with a lot of these things. Antiques Roadshow is a great example of this, of the memories, the history of, say, obviously the military. That's a big one. Obviously, that's the family history, but potentially a lot of things that come up on there are like obviously paintings or like an autograph book.
Okay, well, a different program, Flog It. Okay, so they are actually selling these family memories, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they've had, say, their mother or their father or aunt has collected a huge amount of autographs from, the old black and white movie stars.
Yeah.
And then they value it and say, probably get about 80 quid.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, how can they even contemplate selling it? Because
considering
this is
like, if you just for a moment cast your mind that this is not a tiny book we're talking about. We were talking about hundreds and hundreds of signatures. That is hundreds and hundreds of interactions with these stars, collecting these things, going to these places. We're talking a pre-internet, pre-tech world, so these had to be physical interactions.
Yeah.
These are all memories, journeys, adventures of seeking out these signatures. And so many years later, it boils down to 80 quid.
80 quid, and you think, these days, what's that? It's 2 takeaways. 2 takeaways. All that for the cost of 2 takeaways.
Exactly.
Or a tank full of petrol.
Yeah. A posh dinner out.
Yeah, so I think collecting.
People need to hold on to the memories.
So
hold on to the history.
So I think you
hold on to the passion.
If anybody asks you why you collect,
yeah,
I think,
or why do I like something, I've said in the past, well, I like it because I like it, and I feel a very generic thing I've said in the past is I like it because I like it, and that seems to be an oversimplistic way of explaining it.
Yeah.
Because how does one really communicate why somebody likes something?
Yeah.
And for me, in this sense of collecting stuff, it's very much I like it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy it by having it and showing it to people that I then hope would enjoy it too, to enjoy what I like.
I suppose, again, if you're talking about somebody who maybe loves football memorabilia, they love football, and they
would enjoy sharing it.
They remember. They've got the again, what's the word I'm looking for? Not leaflet. Program from certain matches.
Mm-hmm.
When they look at that program, it then brings back the memories that they had watching the people in that thing. But again, I think maybe that's probably a big part of collecting. It's like everything you collect holds a memory.
Yeah.
And people just collect in different ways. I don't
Exactly.
think, but I think if somebody asks you to, well, I hope you're going to get rid of all that then, if we're going to be together, I think you've got the wrong person.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So collecting can be a fantastic hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can also be a negative thing if it turns into hoarding.
If it becomes a problem, yeah.
Yeah. It becomes a problem, which is affecting your life.
Yeah.
Then
that's probably the best way
to describe it. It goes too far. You don't want to get to that obsessive compulsive level.
It's also a need and want. It's something that you've got to obviously have a passion for. It's got to reflect you and not just be for the sake of it.
You just got to make you happy.
Yeah. Be happy.
Be happy.
Share your happiness when somebody asks you, why do you like it? Why do you collect it?
The thing is, ultimately, as long as you've got a room or somewhere you can store your stuff, you can close the door on it.
Or the hatch.
And there you go. Or the hatch. Yeah. And there you go. So collecting. I think we've discovered why we collect, and it's a good thing to collect. And if you're not a collector, maybe you should take a little step back and think, hey, maybe I am a collector, but not of material or physical things. I'm a collector of memories and experiences. And I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Which leaves us to round off with, since that was quite prophetic really, with the Wisdom of the Week. Right, let's see. I've got Wisdom of the Week, and it's coming up now.
Okay. Bestow your wisdom.
I shall bestow your wisdom, so you can take this with you wherever you go, listeners, for the rest of the week. Okay. The wise don't wait to enjoy the view from the top of the mountain. They recognise the beauty in the journey upwards.
Ooh.
There you go.
It's about the journey.
It's about
the memories you collect along the way.
Exactly. So there you go. Huzzah.
Exactly. Wow, that was a fun podcast. I dare say that, considering the amount of things we have, the collectibles, the physical media, etc., 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 I dare say we can do further collectibles podcasts in the future.
Don't even start on the medieval militaria and stuff.
Ooh, spoilers.
It's not everybody who has suits of armour. There you go.
Exactly.
How many helmets do we
Or
have?
maybe that would be the subject for another week's podcast.
And the fact that our lounge has got like a shelf round it with helmets from probably every period of.
And
hasn't got a Roman helmet. There you go.
There's a few blank spots. We can pad it out.
We can pad it out.
Okay. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
Huzzah! That's a big, I don't know, collectomania goodbye from Buzz.
And a big look at my physical media Blu-ray collection if you're viewing on YouTube.
Yay.
Goodbye from Zach. See you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.